So there I was in China in a department store, and I was approached by a very friendly young man, a sales clerk, and he proceeded to try to sell me whatever it was I was shopping for. I think I was buying a ping pong paddle. I don't even remember what I was buying. But the point is, he was very friendly and he started talking to me. The problem that I had was he was speaking Chinese, and here I was immersed in Chinese culture, surrounded by Chinese people, and I cannot speak Chinese. I cannot understand Chinese. And so I had to communicate to this guy with nonverbal communication, nonverbal expressions that I cannot understand what you're saying. And I did that by kind of throwing up my hands and I tapped my ear. Maybe even made a face. I don't remember. And he got it. And so he took out a notepad and he started to write down what he was saying so I could understand him. And I looked at what he wrote, and it was in Chinese. It was in Chinese characters. So I could no more understand what he was writing than I could understand what he was saying. The reason is he misunderstood my nonverbal expression, my nonverbal communication. Because when I touched my ear, threw up my hands and touched my ear, he saw what I did. What I was saying is, I cannot understand Chinese. What he heard was, I'm deaf. He thought I couldn't hear. And so he started writing out so I could see and understand him, but that was miscommunication. That's what it's like having Asperger Syndrome. Imagine all day long people are saying, I don't speak Chinese, and what you're hearing is, you're deaf. Just totally different. Some people may look angry. They're communicating to you, I am angry, and what you are hearing is, from their expressions, not literal hearing, obviously, is they are saying to you, they're saying, I'm frustrated. You just miss it. That's what it's like, again, having Asperger Syndrome. By the way, I've identified 14 expressions that people communicate, and we're going to go over those very quickly in a few moments. So hang in there. Got a couple other things we want to talk about, but that is one of them. Now, my name is Ken. In case you don't know, I've lived nearly 70 years, and during that time, all of that time, I've lived with Asperger Syndrome, and I've learned a thing or two. I want to share some of those things that I learned with you, and I've learned a lot about nonverbal expressions, so let's dig into this. So I was at this department store. I was talking to the sales clerk. He could not understand me. I could not understand him, so that is an analogy of what it is like when you try to pick up on those nonverbal expressions. I keep wanting to call them nonverbal cues, but they're expressions, which includes cues. So when somebody tags me on Facebook, those little smiley faces, what do you call those? Emoticons. Okay, I get it. They're happy. They're trying to tell me they're happy. When I see people smile, I generally understand you are expressing happiness. But sometimes people smile and they're expressing deviousness. I don't always pick up on that, and somebody smiles because they're happy, and what I'm hearing, like the Chinese sales clerk, is they're expressing happiness, and I'm picking up they're being devious. They're up to something. What is this guy up to? So once again, that is what it's like having Asperger Syndrome and going through life living in China. All right, so I got home from China after about 2.5 weeks. And I was still surrounded in an environment, in a culture that I could not understand. So just like in China, I could not understand Chinese. When I got back to the United States, I could not understand completely non-verbal expressions. So that leads to a lot of frustration. Okay, I've got another example for you. When I was a kid, I went to school like all kids do, and we had music class. I guess they still do that in school, and we would basically sit in this class and sing. That was the essence of the music class. Didn't teach us a lot, but we learned a little bit. And I recall maybe third, fourth grade that we were sitting there singing, and that was the first time in my life I ever encountered somebody who was tone deaf. The kid sitting next to me couldn't hear the music, but he was singing the same note. I thought that was, geez, so strange. Now, what was curious about this is he got the words right. He got the rhythm right. He just didn't get the music. He couldn't hear it. Now, what was really, really weird is he didn't seem to know that he couldn't hear the music. He was just oblivious to the fact that he couldn't hear it, and he just went on singing. Now, everybody in the class could tell this kid was not singing on pitch. Everybody, including the teacher, except for the kid himself. So we go through life as people with Asperger Syndrome, and we're tone deaf. We're singing off pitch. We don't know it. We just don't know it. We think we're doing fine. We're just singing along with everybody else. And sometimes we wonder, why are people looking at us strange? But even when people look at us strange, we don't pick up on that. So we just go through life trying to communicate with Chinese people, or Chinese people trying to communicate with us. We go through life singing tone deaf, not knowing we're singing tone deaf. Okay, let's take this analogy and let's beef it up a little bit. Let's imagine that you are in China and you join the choir. The problem is you are tone deaf and you can't speak Chinese, but you're going to join the choir. That's going to be a serious problem, but hey, you can hear the music, you just don't relate to it. You can't sing the words because you don't know the words, but okay, you can clap along with the music. That's pretty much it. But what is really weird is that you just don't know it. So you just kind of mumble whatever you think is Chinese, and it kind of sounds alike. Yeah, that's what it's like having Asperger Syndrome. So those of you who do not have Asperger Syndrome, you might want to delve deep into your soul and your heart and dig up a little bit of empathy and understand that those of us with Asperger Syndrome, besides the fact that I stumble over my words constantly, we're not being aloof, we're not being mean, we're not being calloused, we just don't get it, we don't understand. So this is what I call are you ready for this? This is what I call a superpower, because we have to live with this thing our entire lives. Come on, seriously, you mean singing tone deaf is a superpower? Yeah, let me explain that. So let's say that you are watching a couple people having an argument. They're mad. I mean, they're about to come to blows, and they're shouting at each other. Now, you can hear the words, but there are other non-verbal expressions, and one of those is the volume of their voice, so you can see that. You can see them flailing their hands around in anger. You can see their body posturing. You can see they're glaring each other in the face. All those things that go along with having a loud argument, just shy of actually punching each other, which, by the way, is a nonverbal expression. It's not a very good one, but it is. Now, here's why I bring this up. Is what you're observing as you watch these people have an argument is you're observing a nonverbal communication, a nonverbal conversation. They're talking to each other nonverbally as well as verbally. Interesting. However, you're not very good at those conversations. Not just anger, but, anything. By the way, again, we're going to identify 14 of these things in just a minute. But we need to understand that that is actually a superpower sometimes, and we go through life with a superpower. How is that a superpower? Well, think about it. Somebody is angry, they come up to you, and they rage. They are talking to you with nonverbal language. And what do they expect you to do? They expect you to talk back to them with nonverbal language, nonverbal expressions. But you don't. That's the superpower. They expect you to do one of two things. While they're raging at you in anger, they expect you to either respond with fear, which is a nonverbal expression, Or they expect you to reply with anger, to respond with the exact same thing they are doing. That's communication. That's talking back and forth non-verbally. But you don't do it. That's your superpower. See, we have the power not to emote. We have the power, the ability to stand back and observe. We have the power as Aspergians to evaluate things that other people they fly into emotional outbursts. They just can't do it. Now, granted, we have those moments of meltdowns. I don't think that's a strength. I don't think that's a superpower. I think it's just letting off steam that we can't help it. But that's not what we're talking about here. But we find this all kinds of circumstances. So I always like to use the example of the ball game when, the bell buzzer goal is hit, the guy gets the ball through the hoop, and everybody explodes, and we're just sitting there watching. That's a superpower, in my opinion, because they can't help themselves. They can't control themselves, but we have the power to control ourselves. All right, now, let's go just a step further before we get into the 14 types of communication. But let me focus on this because this is so very important. One of the things we miss with nonverbal expressions is not only misinterpreting the expression themselves, but we also miss why. We miss why. Why is this guy angry? Why is this guy sad? Why is he happy? We don't know. We can see that he is. We don't fully comprehend the emotion that is being emoted, but we see it. But we don't always understand why. Okay, let's get to the 14 emotions very quickly. Number 1 is love. We have difficulty sometimes expressing love, but we also have difficulty reading love. One of the problems that I had this was not a serious problem, I didn't face it often, but one of the problems I had when I was in high school is there were a couple girls that over the course of the years who showed interest in me. I didn't know it. Took me a while to figure out. But by then they were mad at me. But, I just didn't pick up on the cues. I just didn't. And another one is hate. There were people who didn't like me. I didn't know it. I thought they were okay with me. Now, other people could figure out if, they love them or don't love them, but some reason I couldn't do it. Another one this is number 3, is excitement. That's the bell buzzer basket. We miss it. I mean, we get it. We just don't get it as extreme as other people do. We're in more control. Another one is we don't always pick up when people are bored. The 5th one is surprise. People act surprised, and I can usually tell when they're acting because they're overacting. But sometimes I can't. So unless you're overacting, I may not know that you are surprised. I mean, if you jump, I'll probably pick up on that if I startle you, but outside of that, it's a little bit different. Also, there is the emotion of contempt. People show contempt for you. By the way, you might notice these 14 things are in 7 pairs. That's because they tend to be opposites of each other. Love, the opposite of hate. Excitement, the opposite of boredom. Surprise, the opposite of contempt. All right, number 7 is anger. That's where the 2 individuals are having this fight. Not physically, but almost physical. Well, it's physical in the sense that they are displaying nonverbal expressions, but they're not punching each other. That's what I meant. So we're observing that. We know that those are nonverbal expressions, but we don't necessarily read them the way they read them, and we don't speak that language. Not very well. I mean, I know a few words in Chinese. I can say hello, ni hao. I can say please, or thank you. What is it? Oh, shay shay or chi chi or so. I can't remember. I can say boo. I learned that. That's one of the first words I learned when I went to China, because you have these street vendors trying to sell you stuff. And I noticed the Chinese would say boo. I guess that means no. I don't know. I don't know what it means, but I know it It communicated to the vendor, whatever you're selling, I don't want it. So I picked up on that word as well. So yeah, I pick up on a few words, nonverbal communications, expressions, but I don't have an extensive vocabulary. So I can't really, I'm not conversant. Put it that way. Anger and pleasure. How do you know somebody is happy? That's real important, particularly if you have a job, I don't know, like a waitress or waiter in a restaurant. You need to know that your customer is pleased, and if they are showing displeasure and you don't pick up on that, oh, it could affect you financially. They may not leave a tip, or a tip as large as they would have if you had understood they're not happy, and so you make accommodation to make sure they are happy. Disgust versus acceptance, those are two more. How do you know somebody is disgusted? How do you know somebody accepts you? Well, sort of kind of do, but not as much as neurotypical people. Then there's fear versus confidence. Can you tell when somebody is afraid? I think I can. Can you tell when somebody is confident? They stand up straight, they look you in the eye, okay, you've learned to read the cues, but it doesn't come naturally. Trust, they're showing very trustworthy expressions that you should be able to pick up on that, but can't do it, sorry. I think so, but not really sure. Then there is the opposite of trust, which is distrust. What face does somebody make? Now imagine this person in the room with you. This person is showing you an expression of distrust. What is that person showing? What is going on with his face, with his hands, with his eyes? I got no idea. That's why I get myself in trouble so many times. What you need to do is understand that you've got this superpower that allows you the opportunity not to react but to respond. Your superpower is the ability to respond rather than react. Other people just don't have that. That means that you are much more level-headed. You can be very useful, particularly in difficult circumstances like emergencies. You've got the power. So don't let anyone tell you there's something evil about this. It's not evil, it's just different. All right, you like this video? Tell you what you got to do. Give it a thumbs up. Share it, please, on social media. If you look underneath the video, you will notice there is a tab that says share. If you click on the tab, what pops up are options. You can share it on Facebook, Reddit, VK, other places. Now, in the comment section below, I want you to be very specific and tell me about your experience that you had. And you don't, just one or two sentences will be fine. You could write paragraphs, up to you. But just share with me and other people watching this video what experiences you have had with your superpower when sometimes it worked out very well, or maybe it did not work out well at all. Yeah, let us know what you think.